on the air with officials here in the United States trying to figure out exactly what happened in Poland after leaders there are now confirming that 2 people have been killed in an explosion just a few miles from the border with Ukraine. Russia denies having anything to do with it, but the Biden administration now scrambling to try to figure out what's up and what it means for our NATO ally. We've got the reaction on both sides of the border. Plus, here at home, 2022 is not even over, but 2024, that is starting already, with former President Donald Trump expected to announce he's taken another shot at the White House, hoping to be the winner in 2 years, even with some in his own party worried that this campaign is already a loser. But one of his possible Republican rivals for the nomination is telling people tonight, hey, just look at the scoreboard. And a key sign ahead of the holidays that inflation may be slowing down. We'll tell you about it. Plus, in tonight's backstory, we go behind the scenes on our team's trip to Kenya. A look at how they're bringing all of us the stories of a people hit hard by a hunger crisis. And trying to get tickets for Taylor Swift's new tour? You're on your own, kid. It is the great war among Swifties right now. And their next target may be Ticketmaster. We're going to explain the whole thing. You probably already know about it from your group chats a little bit later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air tonight being as transparent as possible, right? As we always are with you, because right now there are a lot more questions than answers about something that happened in Europe. So here's what we know right now. Okay, Poland is confirming an explosion near the border with Ukraine that killed 2 people, with the White House telling us the President Biden, has been briefed on this, has just spoken with the Polish president. They got off the phone, actually, right as we were coming on the air. Poland is also saying it's, in their words, increasing the readiness of some of its troops. Here's what we don't know. Here's the big question now. Was Russia in any way involved? They're saying no, with Moscow's Ministry of Defense saying the statements of the Polish media and officials is a, quote, deliberate provocation in order to escalate the situation. The White House is telling us they cannot confirm any reports or any of the details at this time of any kind of Russian involvement. The State Department is not confirming anything, but saying they're working with Poland, obviously, to try and figure out what happened. Same deal. A lot of caution over at the Pentagon. Watch.
We are aware of the press reports alleging that 2 Russian missiles have struck a location inside Poland near the Ukraine border. I can tell you that we don't have any information at this time to corroborate those reports and are looking into this further.
Okay, so take a look. This is where a Polish official says this happened. We don't know, again, whether this explosion was deliberate, what caused it, any of the details here. The White House says it's got to figure out, was this, again, something from Russia? In the past, they say Russian rockets have not been very precise. And the location we're talking about is just about 4 miles from the border with Ukraine here, on a day when we know that Russia has been going after Lviv in Ukraine very hard. Monica Alba and Josh Letterman is joining us now. And Monica, I want to start with you because, as I mentioned, right as we were walking into the studio, we heard the President Biden and the Polish president had just wrapped up a conversation. What else do we know? Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, and likely an urgent call, of course, Hallie. And let's remind everybody, the President of the United States is currently in Bali, Indonesia, at the G20, where he is wrapping up all of those meetings with other world leaders and is expected to come home in the next 24 hours or so. But we do know that in the middle of the night, as these reports came out across the Biden administration, U.S. officials were working feverishly to try to see what they could find out. And they didn't want to comment, or they're not able to confirm anything until they get more information. But we now know that this delicate diplomatic dance has started in earnest in terms of the U.S. president reaching out to his Polish counterpart. We also know that National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan did the same thing on his level, that they're having these conversations. But again, we're in assessment mode, trying to figure out still what took place here, and the U.S. wanting to be very careful in terms of what they can offer, simply saying that it would be incredibly concerning if these reports turn out to be true, but that it's simply too soon to know that. So the president, just in terms of talking about reality check where he is and in the middle of the night, this is a job where you do get woken up in the middle of the night quite frequently if you're a commander-in-chief, of course, but this taking place as he is many time zones away dealing with a number of other international pressing issues. So the president is still expected to participate in a couple of the outstanding G20 events in the next couple of hours, and then he's going to be coming back here to Washington, D.C. He'll be briefed throughout, and then again, there will be this major question of what role the U.S. wants to play in the NATO alliance in terms of taking stock of what we still don't know fully happened here, but you can bet that they are now going to work to try to get more information. This president has been clear from the start that any attack on any NATO country, he has said, is an attack on all of us. Hallie.
Josh, let me go to you. You are overseas for us right now. Bring us up to speed on what you are hearing and what we know. And again, I know that this is probably irritating for people, right? That we're coming on the air being like, hey, we have questions too. But so do U.S. officials about what happened here. And let me remind people why this matters. And Monica alluded to it. Poland is a NATO ally, right? So that means that if, and I want to be very, and I don't want to get into hypotheticals, but if something happened that involved Poland, it involves all of the countries in the NATO alliance that you see on your screen here, including the United States, of course, because of Article 5 of NATO, Josh.
That's right. And in fact, the only time Article 5 has been invoked in the history of this alliance, Hallie, was to defend the United States after the September 11th attacks. That took weeks before that happened
and
after 9/11.
No, but there's no suggestion that we're going down this road, right? Like because I talked to some experts on this who are like, hey, everybody's got to take a deep breath because we still don't know the facts of the matter here. Poland hasn't come out and said specifically what has happened other than confirming an explosion that was deadly. The U.S., as Monica and you are both reporting, like there are still a million question marks on this front. I just want to be super clear with people that that's where we are, you know, in the evening time here in the 5, 6 o'clock hour on the East Coast in Washington.
Absolutely. And that is the reason that you're seeing not only every part of the U.S. government, but all of these other governments in the region be so cautious, so careful in not getting ahead of the facts that they know right now. Because if it turns out that this was some type of a deliberate attack on a NATO country, that is really going to ramp up the pressure for some type of NATO response. If it turns out that this was not deliberate, that it was a mistake and the Russians own up to it, or there's some other explanation, then potentially there's a response that is different, or the conversation is different. There's also something in addition to Article 5, Hallie, called Article 4, which is something that the Polish government could invoke, which would prompt NATO to have really urgent consultations about the response to this situation. We already saw Poland invoke Article 4 early in the war simply because of the situation in the country across their border. That is certainly a step short of invoking an Article 5 response that could take place here, and that is likely some of the topics of conversation taking place as President Duda of Poland speaks not only to President Biden, but he also spoke, we heard, to the NATO Secretary General, as well as to other leaders in the region. The Polish National Security Team has been meeting urgently in the past few hours with that Polish government spokesman, not only confirming the explosion and that 2 people were killed, but also saying that Poland at this hour is increasing the military readiness of some of its units as well as some of its other security services, just to be absolutely careful, as they're not sure what else could happen here. We saw this barrage of rockets aimed at cities throughout Ukraine today, including Lviv, very close to the Polish border. And so there are concerns that there could be additional threats that people need to be very careful of, even as they are still working feverishly to try to get to the bottom of exactly what happened over the border in Poland.
You bring up something so important, Josh, which was that massive attack from Russia, of course, on Ukraine, Lviv, and other towns and cities as well. Josh Letterman, Monica Alba, thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's look ahead to what's going down in the next couple of hours when the race for 2024 will officially start, we think. That's because former President Trump is widely expected to announce at his Florida home at Mar-a-Lago that he is setting up for a 3rd run for the White House. The big question, right? Does a Republican Party hurt by Mr. Trump's election lies and a disappointing midterm performance, do they still want him? There's some big names in the former president's own party who say, hey, it is time to move on. And I'm not talking about Republicans like Senator Mitt Romney, who's saying his party needs a different pitcher on the mound. He's made his opinion about Mr. Trump clear. He's made it clear for years. I'm talking about Republicans in battleground states, like one Pennsylvania official who's telling NBC News, you have to change with the times sometimes. And then there's Republicans like Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis, who voted to overturn the 2020 election, by the way, the legitimate results of the 2020 election. But she now says her party's got a new top man.
Will you endorse him if and when he announces?
I don't think that's the right question. I think the question is, who is the current leader of so?
I don't have an answer.
Oh, I know who it is.
Who is it?
Ron DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis, she says, the Florida governor. So is Governor DeSantis up for the job? Well, he's not exactly backing down from the idea of a showdown against Mr. Trump.
When you're leading, when you're getting things done, yeah, you take incoming fire. That's just the nature of it. At the end of the day, I would just tell people to go check out the scoreboard from last Tuesday night.
Okay, so let's check out the scoreboard then. That's a big reason why folks are not happy with former President Trump, because candidates like Kari Lake, who you see on your screen here, who wholeheartedly embraced the former president's fantasies about fraud, lost big, right? You look at Arizona's candidate for governor here. We are calling the race here at NBC News now, projecting it for Democrat Katie Hobbs. This is a 15-point swing, folks, from the 2018 governor's race. And we should note here that Lake is not conceding, with a cryptic tweet about Arizonans knowing, as she put it, knowing BS when they see it. Vaughn Hilliard is in West Palm Beach, Florida for us. And Vaughn, all of that said, right, like all of that said, former President Trump looks to be full steam ahead based on the folks that I've talked to in Trump world. I know the folks that you've talked to as well. You have the former president calling today one of the most important days in our country's history.
9 p.m. Eastern tonight, just a couple hours from now, Hallie. The former president intends to be in the picture here for the next 6 years. 2 years on the campaign trail ahead, and then 4 years serving in the White House. That's the stated goal of Donald Trump here. The question is there going to be a resistance outside of Cynthia Lummis, Bill Cassidy, Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, that actually mount a credible, significant operation to try to take him on here? Right now, the PACs around Donald Trump still have about $100 million in the bank. He is announcing here, even ahead of that Georgia runoff here coming off here, he's got a significant operation. That of the former president of the United States is not a small one. He's held rallies across the country this year that have brought out thousands of folks here, and he still has a bastion of support, a bastion of loyalists, not only in the halls of Congress, but among voters around the country, Hallie.
Senator Josh Hawley said something kind of interesting late today, Vaughn. Let me play it for you. Watch.
I think that this election was the funeral for the Republican Party as we know it. The Republican Party, as we have known it, is dead. This party is going to have to it's going to have to be different, or we're not going to be a majority party in this country.
You know, it's interesting here. Senator Hawley is somebody who is an election denier. He voted not to certify the legitimate win for President Biden after the 2020 race. When he says the Republican Party is dead, like, what does that mean? That it's got to be more MAGA, that it's got to be more moderate, that Donald Trump can't be at the top of it?
Look, there was a lot of folks that thought the Republican Party was dead after January 6th of 2021, and yet they, for the most part, coalesced back around Donald Trump here. But I think that this was an electoral reckoning, one that is more powerful than any event clearly could take place. But when you're questioning what is that step, what does that change look like? I mean, Liz Cheney has her ideas. She has stated it very clearly, and that is to have a Republican Party that does not include Donald Trump. As for Josh Hawley, I don't know if moderate would be the right word, but in conversations with the folks around Josh Hawley, there is a belief that there is a national party that could be built around a more populist message, one that is more of an acknowledgement of the general, more diverse American workforce. Whether Josh Hawley is the one best to represent that, I'll let others to decide that there. But there is a belief that the Republican Party needs to move in a different direction. The question is, who is going to take that mantle and actually do that, or is Donald Trump looking to be the nominee a little over a year from now?
And who's going to go up against him, right? Not just in the primary, but in the general. You got President Biden, who has not officially made an announcement, sort of his decision on 2024, although he said he's inclined to run again. He's got this video out today showing the divide between him and his predecessor, which I think a lot of people are looking to like, that's kind of interesting. That would feel like a 2020 rematch, but I'll tell you, Vaughn, what I've heard from sources close to former President Trump is this is actually going to feel tonight, at least where you are, more like 2016 vibes. The idea that the former president, even though he spent 4 years in the White House, is going to try to take on that anti-Washington mantle just like he did the first time around.
And it's because it's more than Democrats that he's facing. It's Republicans like 2015 and 2016 again here. You know, that video that you were mentioning was focused on infrastructure. And there were several clips of Donald Trump talking about passing major infrastructure package. And then you see on the split screen, Joe Biden actually signing an infrastructure package there into law. Look, the issue for Republicans is that they thought the issues were on their side, from record number of migrants at the border to inflation to Joe Biden having low approval ratings. But none of those things were good enough for them to win those major races around the country. Donald Trump is going to have to figure out another message here in order to succeed going forward.
Vaughn Hilliard, thank you very much. By the way, in case you forgot, with all this 2024 talk, We're not even done with 2022 yet, folks. Right now, NBC News is still not projecting what the balance of power will be in the House of Representatives. We still can't call the House. What we can tell you is it's looking pretty good for Republicans. They've gotten a lot of calls in the last 24 hours in close races that are getting them closer to the magic number, 218. Right now, they are 2 away, okay? I know this graphic is super confusing. I'm sorry, that's out of our control. But the bottom line is the math is in Republicans' favor. They're in the driver's seat, and they're getting ready for that. They're picking Steve Scalise as majority leader. That is different from Speaker, right, if, in fact, they end up with control of the House. For Speaker, you've got this internal vote today that showed that Kevin McCarthy is now the Republican nominee for that position. He got 188 votes. But, folks, there is a catch, right? Because look at the guy to the right of Kevin McCarthy here, Congressman Andy Biggs. He got 31 votes. And you're thinking, well, Hallie, 188 is a whole lot bigger than 31. I know. I'm not great at math, but I know that. The bottom line, though, McCarthy doesn't need 188 votes come January. He needs 218, right? So he needs to get his people, his Republicans together, if he wants to be Speaker, and back him when the official formal vote happens in January. Sahil Kapoor is on Capitol Hill. And side note, Sahil, that's not even all the drama that is going down, but we'll start there. What is Kevin McCarthy going to have to do to get those votes on his side by January 3rd when this thing actually goes down for real?
This will be a big test for Kevin McCarthy, Hallie. He can beg, he can bribe, he can inspire these members, try to convince them that he's the only man for this job. The next 49 days will be crucial for McCarthy because if he has this kind of a runway to get his members on board, and he spent, frankly, 7 years angling for this job, if he's not able to do it, that bodes ill for his ability to govern. Now, the answer to your question lies in the minds of most of these Freedom Caucus members, the far-right faction of the House Republican Conference, which is refusing to supply the votes for Kevin McCarthy now. Clearly, they have some demands. They're not being very forthcoming of them. Maybe they want committee assignments. Maybe they want commitments on how legislation is brought to the floor from a procedural standpoint. Maybe they want, commitments on what specific bills are coming up. Regardless, McCarthy knows who these people are. He's dealt with them for many years under, multiple Republican speakers of the House for whom he has served as deputy. If he can't pull this off over the next 49 days, they might be looking elsewhere. But right now, there's no other name that you would say is more likely to become Speaker of the House at this point, given that Republicans appear in the driver's seat.
Can you just, because I hear my people who do not live in the Beltway, yelling at me through however you're streaming this right now, which is why do I care? Right? Why should I care what is up with Kevin McCarthy and his internal Republican drama? I personally, Hallie, I care because I cover this every day. This is my life. But the reason why this matters to anybody else, right, who's not a political correspondent or in the House of Representatives is because this affects the actual work of governing, right, Sahil? Because the House Speaker determines in many ways what ends up getting voted on in the House of Representatives, policy changes, anything that actually affects your life from a federal law perspective, the House Speaker would have a hand in. That's why this matters.
Absolutely right. The House Speaker is one of the most powerful jobs in the United States. It's, of course, second in line to the presidency right after the vice president. And yes, you control every piece of legislation that comes to the floor of the House. That includes basic things like keeping the lights on, funding the government, raising the debt ceiling to prevent default, which is something that Kevin McCarthy, if he becomes Speaker, is going to have to deal with, reauthorizing the Pentagon, farm bills, everything, you name it. So the power of this position is enormous when it comes to the basic functions of governing and perhaps some of the more ambitious policy items which appear very unlikely under a Republican House and a Biden presidency, Hallie.
It's the same deal on the Senate side as far as the power for both the Senate Majority Leader, which looks to be going to be Chuck Schumer again on the Democratic side, and the Minority Leader, who is currently Mitch McConnell. And since Republicans do not have control of the Senate next Congress, he is hoping to win that spot again. He is facing a challenge from Florida Senator Rick Scott, who sent out a letter today telling his colleagues he's going to go up against McConnell to try and take this position. We've already seen McConnell give a little brushback in the last 25 minutes or so at Scott, who is not at today's leadership press conference. I want to play a little bit of that.
I think the outcome is pretty clear. I want to repeat again. I have the votes. I will be elected.
Question is when. He also said at one point that it's really obvious that there may or may not be a vote tomorrow on the leadership. Well, right. It's either going to be tomorrow or it's not going to be tomorrow. This, again, is interesting because it showcases a power dynamic inside the Republican Party. Senator Mitch McConnell, not known for being a Donald Trump ally. Senator Rick Scott, certainly on the opposite end of that spectrum.
Absolutely. And McConnell sounds pretty confident in the end game simply because, Hallie, you need a majority of the caucus to get elected leader. This is a closed ballot, or rather secret ballot election, and McConnell is the very clear favorite to win re-election to that spot. Now, it is notable that McConnell has never faced a serious challenge to his leadership over the last 15 years of serving in that position. He's had a hammerlock over the caucus, and that discontent that you see within the party comes from the grassroots. It comes from some party elites who are angry at the fact that Republicans underperformed so much, failed to gain the net one seat they needed to win control of the chamber. Some people do blame McConnell, including apparently Rick Scott. Others blame Rick Scott. Others blame Donald Trump. There isn't a clear consensus, Hallie, as to what exactly went wrong over the 2022 elections. Those recriminations will continue after these leadership elections.
Sahil Kapoor live for us on Capitol Hill. Sahil, thank you. We've talked about politics. Let's talk about money, your money. Because if you have any of it invested, you might be glad to hear that stocks are closing up today after another report showing us that inflation might be slowing down a little bit. Look at this. Green, green, green for the Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ, all up a little bit after the producer price index went up 0.2% in October. And if you're like me, you're like, excuse me, the producer price what? Basically, it's a number that tells us how much companies are paying for things before selling those things to everybody else. And those prices went up less than what experts had anticipated. So why are we talking about it? Because it's more evidence that inflation is slowing down, meaning the Fed might pull back a little bit on how aggressive it's being with interest rate hikes if this keeps happening. And even as the Fed is trying to cool things down, you've got companies like Walmart, Target, Kohl's hoping to heat things up with the holidays coming up. And for Walmart, it's looking pretty good. They just reported their most recent earnings in this last quarter went up by 9%, beating Wall Street expectations there. Brian Chung is joining us now. So, Brian, let's talk about the producer price index without talking about the producer price index because nobody knows what that is. But the bottom line is if what companies are paying, if those prices aren't going up as fast, like eventually the hope is what you and I and other people buy, we will also not see those prices going up so quickly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So it's essentially the wholesale prices, right? How much the manufacturer sells the things to the retailer that you'll ultimately go out and buy your stuff from. And that number did go up, so price is still increasing, but at a much slower pace than the economists had expected. Again, up 0.2% in October. Economists thought it was going to come in somewhere around 0.4%. But we're already seeing this impacted in the prices that you're paying at the cash register because the consumer price index, another alphabet soup of data that we got last week, showed that prices increased on a year-over-year basis in October by 7.7%. That is still really high, but it's lower than the 9.1% we had seen earlier in the year.
Let me just demystify the alphabet soup.
Yeah.
The bottom line is all of these numbers that you and biz tech people and people all of the numbers you're looking at so far recently are showing inflation is still happening, but it's slowing down a little bit. Is that fair?
That is exactly it. And it's important to remember that when we talk about inflation going down, that doesn't mean prices are going to go down. It might for some things, but we're hoping to talk about prices increasing at a slower rate than they have. And it does seem like at least these reports seem to be pointing in that direction.
But what's also happening is people are changing their spending and their shopping habits, right? Because we talked about Walmart doing pretty good. And it's partly because people who make more money are showing up at Walmart now, perhaps because they're like everybody else. Whoa, I don't want to be spending this much for, you know, my toothpaste or whatever.
Yeah, and when we talk about this, first of all, we're not talking about billionaires, right? It's not Elon Musk or Jeff
Bezos is not showing up at my local Walmart.
They are not buying bananas at Walmart. But look, what we are seeing is the amount of people who are making over $100,000, which is a little bit higher than the average shopper at Walmart, going into Walmart, buying specifically food, and Walmart executives saying this is a sure sign of the inflationary pressures, and they hope they can take those same customers and turn them to their home section. Maybe they'll buy furniture as well, so we'll see.
While I have you on shopping, some retailers have ordered a lot of stuff. They ordered it months ago. Now they're like, oh, man, we got to get it off the shelves. Does that mean we're going to see bananas discounts for Black Friday in the holidays?
Yeah, it's going to depend on what type of category you're looking at, but clothing is a big one, right? There were all of these clothes retailers that had sweaters that were stuck on boats that they were hoping to sell last Black Friday that didn't arrive until April. So what do? They just kept them in the warehouses, and they're going to try to sell them this holiday season. We've already seen some strong discounting, so it could be a good time, Hallie, to go out and buy a sweater this season.
Okay, I'm marking it. My partner will be getting a sweater for Christmas. Spoiler, Frank, sorry. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Let's take it down south, where a judge in Atlanta today is overturning Georgia's ban on abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy, saying it is not constitutional and it violates Supreme Court precedent. This ruling takes effect immediately, and it comes after doctors and advocacy groups filed a lawsuit saying Georgia's restrictive ban violated the right to privacy and liberty by forcing women in the state to have children. This ban had been in effect since July. You'll remember it was one of the states we were talking about a lot right after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. We're already seeing signals from the Georgia Attorney General's office that they will appeal. Blaine Alexander joins us now. And Blaine, this would mean they would have to appeal. Is it up to the Supreme Court? Is it up to an appeals court? Does this mean abortion is now legal as of right now in Georgia? What does this mean?
So, yes, it does mean that as of right now, that abortion law will no longer be enforced here in Georgia. So, yes, abortion is not illegal past the 6-week mark. So that's certainly a very big change. But what I really think is interesting about this, Hallie, is the details about this ruling. So this heartbeat law is something that was passed back in May of 2019. It had just been blocked by a court up until July of this year, of course, in the wake of the Dobbs decision. But the judge, in his opinion, basically says that because it was unconstitutional at the time that it passed, back in 2019, that essentially is what sticks. So he's asking people not to look at this in the context of a post-Dobbs world, but to go back and look at the world as it was back in May of 2019. And he says because Roe v. Wade was still the law of the land at the time, the law that was passed is unconstitutional. That's what sticks. Now, what's interesting about all of this is that he does leave the door open, essentially saying that, yeah, because this passed back then, that's a wash. You can't consider that. But he says that lawmakers can still go forward and actually consider another piece of legislation, and that would be in a completely different environment. Now, as for the appeal that you asked about, yes, that's something that the Attorney General says they've already filed. In fact, they already did that within just a couple of hours of that decision coming down. They've made it very clear. Attorney General Chris Carr has made it very clear that he plans to defend this law. He's made it very clear what his stance is on abortion. And so we certainly expect a lengthy legal back and forth on this.
Blaine Alexander live for us there in Georgia. Blaine, thank you. Coming up here on the show, the suspect charged with attacking Paul Pelosi pleading not guilty in court today. What we're learning from today's hearing about that attack on the House Speaker's husband, plus classes starting up again tomorrow at the University of Virginia, although it's not as clear what's next for the school's football team after 3 of its players were killed over the weekend. What we're hearing from the coach today, coming up. The suspect charged with attacking the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi, pleading not guilty today to both federal charges of assault and attempted kidnapping in a courtroom in San Francisco. If he's convicted, he's looking at some pretty hefty sentences behind bars. The assault charge carries a maximum of 30 years in prison, kidnapping 20 years in prison. This is his first federal court appearance. He also pleaded not guilty to separate state charges, including attempted murder, burglary, and elder abuse. Dana Griffin is joining us now from out in California. Dana, bring us up to speed on what we know and where this goes next.
Good afternoon, Hallie. So this was a very brief court appearance during which 42-year-old David DePape pleaded not guilty to those federal charges, which are assault on an immediate family member of a U.S. official and attempted kidnapping. So he walked in quietly with his orange prison outfit. These are the only images since we do not have cameras in court. This is from sketch artist Vicky Behringer. Now, he was returned to state custody where he faces a litany of other charges, including attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and Hallie, elder abuse.
Dana Griffin, thank you very much for that reporting. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the University of Virginia football coach, Tony Elliott, is today saying the shooting deaths of 3 of his players feels like a nightmare. He says the team is working to find ways to celebrate their lives cut short too soon. UVA is set to play against Coastal Carolina on Saturday. The game has not been canceled yet, but a decision will be made soon after, of course, those 3 football players were shot and killed over the weekend by an ex-teammate, fellow teammate. The university's president says classes will pick back up again tomorrow at the school, but undergrads will not be required to complete any graded assignments or take exams before Thanksgiving break. Number 2, Walmart is offering to pay a little more than $3 billion as part of a settlement for selling opioids at its pharmacies. Their announcement follows similar ones from CVS and Walgreens, which each said they would pay about $5 billion. Number 3, workplace absences for childcare reasons. In other words, the number of people saying they had to skip out of work to care for their kids got to an all-time high in October. This is according to new data from the government. Between a new round of those viral infections for kids that we've been talking about, you got staffing shortages at schools and daycares. If you're a parent, you know it has not been easy. More than 100,000 Americans missed work last month because of childcare issues. Number 4, looks like Novak Djokovic might be getting a visa to play in the next Australian Open. Local media is reporting the country's immigration minister would put aside a potential entry ban against Djokovic so he could compete, An Australian Department of Home Affairs spokesperson declined to comment on the reports. Remember, last January, the 21-time Grand Slam champ got deported because he was not vaccinated against COVID. He is still not vaccinated. Number 5, who runs the Grammys? Beyonce. She's the top nominee for this year's award. With 9 of them, she's now tied with her husband, Jay-Z, as the most nominated artists of all times. Kendrick Lamar also leading the pack with 8 nominations. Adele, Brandi Carlile both have 7. Taylor Swift is nominated for Song of the Year for All Too Well. More on the bigger headlines she's making today later in the show. Also, later in the show, our backstory tonight. All about the hunger crisis in Kenya. We're talking with Keir Simmons about how his reporting went behind the scenes, how it all came together on this critically important story. Don't miss it. Well, guess what? You are officially 1 in 8 billion. Because there are now 8 billion people living on planet Earth, according to UN estimates. The global population more than tripling since 1950. And in just the last 12 years, I should say, we've added 1 billion people. Mostly countries in Asia account for a lot of that population growth, rather. The planet is projected to reach 10 billion people before the end of the century, with India expected to pass China as the world's most populous country next year. But for the planet, is this good news? Well, there are strains on global resources and mass migration. That's becoming big concerns with climate change front and center. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day. And because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Midwest Bureau, police in Idaho say they think some kind of a weapon, like maybe a knife, was used to kill 4 college students over the weekend. Officials think it was a targeted attack. They're calling it an edged weapon. Again, probably a knife. They say they haven't actually found it yet. The 3 women and 1 man who died were all students at the University of Idaho. Police say there is no suspect in custody. A vigil will be held tomorrow to remember those lives lost. From our West Coast Bureau, former MLB All-Star Yasiel Puig is facing up to 5 years in federal prison after pleading guilty today to lying to federal agents who were investigating an illegal sports gambling operation. Officials say the ex-Dodgers star placed nearly 900 illegal bets over the course of 3 months. In a statement, Puig's agent is stressing he was not charged with illegal gambling. The issue is what he said or did not say during an interview. She added that Puig, who's now playing in South Korea, took responsibility and that this agreement with the government should end, which she describes as a whole unfortunate event. For our Northeast Bureau, a sneak peek of Macy's new fleet of floats for its Thanksgiving parade. Look out for Baby Shark. Toys R Us's Jeffrey the Giraffe. New floats from Macy's, Netflix, taken on the streets of Manhattan. You can watch the 96th Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on NBC News or, of course, on Peacock. Coming up, NASA's Artemis 1 rocket getting ready for its first flight again. How much is riding on this test launch and what it means for getting Americans back on the moon? That's next. So right now, people are getting psyched for go time at the Kennedy Space Center because in just a few hours, the Artemis moon rocket is set to lift off. Well, that's if it actually does lift off. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, folks, but we've been here before, okay? This big test for NASA, the first step towards getting astronauts back on the moon for the first time in 50 years. Remember, there's not going to be a crew on this mission. It's going to be an unmanned capsule that'll orbit the moon for a few weeks and come back to Earth in December. Okay, fine. But if you're like, wait, I'm having deja vu, you're not wrong here, folks. This launch has been delayed 4 times, 2 scrubs and 2 hurricanes. NBC's Tom Costello joins us now. I feel like 1 a.m., just get me there and tell me if this thing has taken off the launch pad or not. What's up?
I've been getting a lot of frequent flyer points coming back here. I'll tell you that. You're absolutely right. I mean,
just buy a house down there at this point.
I know I should get a Florida driver's license. I'd save on taxes. You're absolutely right. I mean, the situation now is that this is their best chance yet to launch Artemis to the moon. Nobody on board, as you said, 26-day mission. We've tried before in August. They had a faulty sensor one day. A few days later, they had a fuel line leak, and then the hurricanes that you mentioned. Now, I do need to mention to you, because you are all things, all news, all the time, Hallie Jackson, yes. And that is that they found a little piece of caulking kind of came loose with the hurricane that came through last week. A little piece of caulking. They have gone over that with a fine microscope. They're convinced it is not an issue at all. They're going to go forward. And so, Hallie, you will be up with me, I'm sure, watching in your PJs, 1:04 a.m. when the window opens. It goes till 3:04 a.m. Eastern time.
You know what, Tom, watching you in my PJs sounds like a hell of a night. So you're correct, sir. We'll be doing it. You know, what's interesting here, I'm looking at this gorgeous sunset behind you, Sailor's Delight, right? So, delight, rather. Like, hopefully that means good weather. We've talked before about how much NASA has riding on this, because they want to get people back to the moon. I think it's 2025, right? They want to land astronauts back again in just a few years from now. They have to get this right, in order for that to happen?
Yeah. If you cross your fingers, 2025, right? I got to say, I think that's unlikely. That's just my read on it. I mean, listen, they've been delayed on this uncrewed mission. Notice we don't say unmanned, uncrewed. 2024, they want to have a crew on another orbital test flight, going around the moon, not landing, and then ideally landing that same year with a crew that includes a woman and a person of color for the first time landing back on the moon since 1972. I just think realistically it may be 25, it may be 26, but the bottom line is this is a major step to get there. You talked about money. $4 billion for every launch. $4 billion with a B. That's a lot of money unless you're Elon Musk. A lot of money. And so the idea here is that ultimately you do turn this job over to Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, so NASA can then focus on going deep and long, and that, of course, would be going to Mars eventually. But this is the first step. They got to build a lunar base. They got to build an orbiting new space station around the moon. And then from there, they go on to Mars. So this is a big step. Hopefully, you know, this is it. It's going to hopefully work tonight.
As you've covered sort of the back and forth, the drama over Artemis here, has anything surprised you, Tom? You've covered aviation and space for us for a long time. I wonder about that.
You know, I mean, they are borrowing heavily from Apollo technology, from Saturn V, that huge rocket that lifted Apollo up to the moon. That was the biggest rocket ever. This will now be even bigger. And so in addition to the Artemis rocket stack, that includes, by the way, 2 booster rockets. Really, that technology is borrowed from the space shuttle days. And then in addition, they're using recycled, reused space shuttle engines on the bottom of the stack. I don't have a problem with that myself. I mean, listen, we reuse engines every day. If you're flying a 737 or a 747, they don't swap them out after every single flight. So if you can do that safely, and NASA's convinced they can, and it's cost effective, great. Now, a lot of people say, you know, this is a hodgepodge of old technology thrown together, and, you know, they use some descriptions that aren't very complimentary. This is going to be a major test to see whether they can, in fact, build on the old, create something new, but using the best of older technology.
And you know, you mentioned the idea that, like, eventually NASA might turn this over to one of these private companies that are exploring space. Do Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or any of these companies, you know, who's the guy, Richard Branson, right? Do they want to take this on? Like, do they want this kind of a mission, try to get to Mars?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Elon is salivating. Jeff Bezos salivating. They want this big time. Branson's no. He's not into this. He's not into going to the moon. But Elon is building this mega rocket that he hopes will eventually take people to the moon and then on to Mars. And Bezos wants a piece of this as well. He wants to be able to carry people down from that orbiting lunar space station I talked about down to the lunar base, and they want to build a base. They're in competition. I don't know if you know, but there's a lot of bad blood between Bezos and Elon Musk, and they're in competition on this. So, yeah, they both want a big piece of this. They've been competing for these contracts. So far, Elon's the only one who's really gotten any of the contracts, but Bezos is really putting on the hard press.
Tom Costello, we could talk about this until 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't think that our bosses would let us, but I will see you in my jammies in a bit. Well, that's not right. You know what I mean. Thanks, Tom. Ooh. If you heard Tom say bad blood, so did I, and so did all the Swifties who were listening out there, right? Because some of them got their hands on those Eras Tour tickets today. Let me tell you, we took a little straw poll of our staff, kind of hit or miss for some of the producers on the team here. We'll talk about why even folks who got verified fan presale had trouble getting their hands on tickets, and bigger picture, what this all means for the future of concert going coming up. So we are, about a week out from Thanksgiving, and airports are really bracing for a practically pre-pandemic number of people showing up and getting ready to travel. AAA expecting nearly 55 million people on the road, too. 49 million driving, 4 million flying, and more than 1 million taking a bus, train, or going on a Thanksgiving cruise. And travel experts, if you're one of the millions flying, you get a heads up. Get your parking spot at the airport today, because it's quite possible if you're driving and you get there, if you're not taking Uber or Lyft or whatever, you may not actually get a spot to park. Here's Sam Brock.
This year, the warm and fuzzy feeling of flying to see loved ones is also being served with the side of sticker shock, with airfares soaring ahead of the holidays.
What should people's expectations be right now if they're trying to book flights to see their families?
We're going to see airfares well over $400, probably many over $1,000, especially those coastal flights from East to West Coast and back.
The deal-finding app Hopper that sells tickets shows September prices are up almost 40% from this time a year ago, even as demand remains rock solid. Even more jarring, another research firm found the average domestic ticket in the second quarter shot up to $397. That's the first time in almost a decade that figure has flown above $390. The Harts are just trying to make their regular trip from Orange County, California to Park City, Utah for Christmas.
It's about an hour and 20 minutes, generally $180 to $220 flight. This year over the holidays, we're looking at flights, and we have kids, of course, and it's about $700 round trip per person.
The anger and shock all over social media. One tweet reading, "When did flights become so expensive again?" Mass disruptions over the summer, igniting a passenger firestorm. And while delays and cancellations have improved significantly, the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, telling Lester he's forcing 6 airlines to pay passengers $600 million in refunds.
Airlines were either taking too long or, in some cases, refusing to give to passengers after their flights experienced extreme delays or cancellations.
Now, a new challenge for travelers, finding affordable tickets.
It didn't take much, one look, and I was like, I think we're going to drive this time.
But if driving is not an option, the best advice from experts?
If you haven't booked your Thanksgiving or Christmas travel yet, book now. Prices will not get better.
That's good advice. Sam Brock, thank you. So Ticketmaster, speaking of things that are expensive, Ticketmaster is telling Taylor Swift fans today it's seeing a historically unprecedented demand for tickets to Swift's new tour Eras. The homepage for Ticketmaster actually went offline from all the traffic it was getting, so then everybody freaked out online. Understandably, these fans wanted to get tickets. A lot of them had already dealt with website issues, hours-long waits just to become a so-called verified fan so that they could then try, keyword try, to then get tickets this morning. And listen, we've talked about it on this show before. Buying concert tickets for really big-name artists, it's not easy, especially coming out of a pandemic where live in-person concerts were not a thing for a long time. Over the past few weeks, we've seen Blink-182, Paramore, Bruce Springsteen, with near-instant sellouts when their tickets came out. And we know that fans are willing to pay a lot. They're willing to pay the price. According to Live Nation, the number of tickets sold for concerts through the third quarter this year went up 37% compared to pre-pandemic in 2019. Stephanie Goss, our chief Swiftie correspondent, is joining us now. And this verified fan thing, it's okay. It then gets you a spot in line to maybe get a ticket, but it doesn't always pay off.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know about down there in D.C. today, but if you were around anybody who got one of these tickets, I wasn't with the person who won the $1 billion for the Powerball, but I can't imagine that their reaction to that, to winning that, is on the same level as this. Look, people waited an incredibly long time. First, this whole verified fan thing, the whole reason that it exists is that Ticketmaster says they want wanted to open up tickets to fans and not bots that are scooping up tickets and then selling them for more expensive prices.
Which is annoying.
Else.
Yes, that is annoying. That is an annoying thing. We can all say. Agree.
Yeah, of course it is. And so ostensibly this is to protect the fans. So Ticketmaster, what they do is they then work with the artist or the event organizer and they set the prices. But what you have to do to get there is you have to identify the show that you want to go and see, in this case, Taylor Swift, and then you have to register, and then you're accepted as a verified fan, and then you have to go back on the day of and actually log in. And that was where people's heads exploded today, because Ticketmaster faced millions and millions of people trying to buy tickets, and their website crashed. And they put out a statement earlier today saying that it was unprecedented demand, that they sold hundreds of thousands of tickets. There was another pre-sale that they were going to have with a credit card. They said they had to push that until tomorrow because of all of this demand. But you had people who were really expecting, so these are the people who actually got a code, expecting to get on today and buy tickets, and they couldn't. And then those who did ended up spending hundreds or even in some cases thousands of dollars.
But so that's it, right? And like, listen, yes, there are fees. I mean, a lot of people, were like sort of pointing out, yeah, you pay a lot on the fees on top of the ticket price. But it's kind of, I wonder if it's warping all of our mentalities about what tickets should cost. Like, the value is whatever we make of it. But I was, again, it's in everybody's group chat today. I was talking to somebody, I will not name names, who spent like hundreds of dollars on a single ticket. And the rationale was like, yeah, like that's not so bad, all things considered, right? I mean, it's the rationale as tickets are getting more and more expensive and harder to get,
Yeah, and people are, and it's interesting. You look at those prices there on the screen.
I don't know anybody who paid $49. If you paid $49, like at me, because I don't know a single person who did that.
I would like to meet that person as well. But a lot of people they're willing to pay actually much more than that. Yeah. And that's why when they go on resale, they will probably be more expensive than that, and people will end up paying it. What's interesting right now, Hallie, is you have this situation where obviously people are in tough shape with inflation and the economy's not great, but the enthusiasm of that kind of break in the pandemic dam to go see live shows and to be around people and to be around music is there, and people are willing to pay for it, and that's what they showed today, at least when it comes to the Swifties who are out there, right?
And I don't know if like maybe I'm just on Swift Talk on TikTok because I see like a lot of her concerts and shows, but like these are viral moments for people. I do think when you talk about the pandemic dam breaking, people are desperate to get out there and have like a collective shared experience,
Yeah, I think that is the case. And it's hard to overstate the kind of cultural effect that this album has had, not just on this country, but on the world. I mean, it is smashing records. Taylor Swift was a pop star for a long time, but really she's just become this cultural phenomenon. And when she announced that she was going to have a tour, and it's a big one, 20 cities, more than 50 shows, people lost their minds, and you saw that a bit today. This isn't just a question of getting tickets. For some people, this is kind of like existential angst trying to get into these shows.
And by the way, that's not to disparage people who want to see her, because this happens like every generation. She is a cultural phenomenon, and this is about people who want to see. Did you, Steph, I have to let you go. Are you going to go? Did you get a ticket? Are you going to?
Of course I didn't get a ticket, but I would love to go. So if anyone has an extra ticket out there.
For the low price of just $49, call Steph.
Yeah, give me a ring. You're welcome.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Gang, you get a little bit of it all on this show, right? A little politics, a little T Swift. We're going to do it again all tomorrow. Can't wait. See you then. Same time, same place. More coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.